Good afternoon, Nathalie Boltt. Welcome on VH Berries.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
My gratitude is proportional to the charisma of the pink cardigan worn by Nancy Kerr, more commonly known as RT, ARTY.
Yes, Artie. That's right. She's a wild one, just like everybody else in my film, which I will release shortly so everybody can see the link. Yeah, well, everyone can see the movie and I'll send you the link, Victor.
Absolutely, I would love to discuss about Attack, which is one of your main releases of this year 2022. Can you tell us a little bit more about how it got all started, including how that pink cardigan gets there?
Well, we wanted my co-writer, Nelson Lees, and I wanted to write a story about the stereotypes of actors. And since you probably know me from Riverdale, which is how a lot of people know me, women do a lot of auditions for the best friend role where you're expected to be very bland. You would just wear a little t-shirt and a cardigan and some denims. Nothing too exciting because you play the good listener. They just want you to be sweet and sensitive. And so we got so tired for the women to be playing these roles, these stereotypes. And then on the other hand, Nelson had brought me this script about men being typecast as always being, tough and rough and criminals and gangsters. And so we thought, well, what if we make a movie where we flip those stereotypes on their heads and of course make a comedy out of it. Yeah, and that's how Attack happened. Attack stands for, spoiler, actors typecast as crooks and killers. And there's a whole joke around those sort of stereotypes, types and acronyms in the film.
You know, Nathalie Boltt, that you went very far when the title in itself is a joke. And there is also a very funny quote about actors who are also substitute teacher.
Yes, it all gets out of hand. So with all the name calling, it starts off with Attack, and then the women arrive and they have their own special name, which I won't spoil. And then, when the third group arrives, then it gets completely out of control and everybody's calling each other names. That's where I like to take my comedies. Just you start somewhere sort of believable, then you take it to the next level where it's getting a little crazy, but really fun. And then you take it to the third level where it's out of control and everyone just goes, aha, I see what this is. This is just a good time. And that's really what we set out to do. It was the middle of COVID. We were one of the first productions in Vancouver to shoot during COVID. So everyone was trying to figure out, how do you do this, with masks and tests and keeping your distance. I mean, like in the film, you'll see Nelson was actually kissing his wife. This was the first time in, probably film history that I know of anyway, where the only people who were allowed to kiss on screen were already partners. So suddenly, there were all these roles available for people in relationships or married couples because there was intimacy and you can't just be kissing a stranger anymore because of COVID. So like one of those 2020 just changed everything. Yeah. So we look back and laugh. I'm so glad that we can. But at the time we all thought, COVID will be over in 6 weeks, maybe 6 months. And here we are still dealing with the very end of it. But we were one of the first films to film during that time. And I'm so glad that we filmed a comedy because everything got really serious after that, didn't it? People got really worn down by the pandemic and everything else that was going on in the world. And that's why, in my free time, for people who know me on Instagram at Nat Boltt, I fight for all the serious stuff. I fight for the environment. I fight for Indigenous rights. I try to use my platform to wake people up to, the issues of the world, from climate change to racism to inequality. But in my films, every now and then I just go crazy and just do something laugh out loud funny so that people can go, yeah, we got to laugh. Otherwise, what are we going to do? Cry all day? I mean, my first comedy, which is also on my website, natboltdirector.com, is Vajazzle, which is an even wilder comedy, which I didn't want to send you, Victor, because I might have shocked you. But, that was also just one of those moments where I made a short film just about the fantasy of how someone might get revenge in the funniest possible way on your partner. And so I do serious, I do funny, I do serious, I do funny. And that's how I deal with life.
This is the best way to deal with life, with some of cold water and hot water, some comedy and some serious things. And in your defense, Nathalie Boltt, attack behind, for example, the sense of humor of Terry Brenzano. There is a huge organization, because at the end of the ending credits, I counted more than 60 crew members.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And we still didn't have enough time, and we still could have shot for another whole day and had all of that footage still to deal with, and we needed that kind of help. But when people make a short film, it's the same as organizing a feature film. So anyone who's made a short film and actually completed it and sent it out into the world, please give them a big hug, because it's incredibly difficult. We all start thinking it'll be easy, and it's never easy. And there are always way more people who have to help you, that you need to help you for it to be finished. Otherwise, you never will. Short films require some respect and a lot of gratitude for all the people who help and do you favors, because so often they're barely paid. They're either paid very little or they're not paid at all. Yeah, and so in Vancouver, we're really lucky. Like back in Wellington, New Zealand, where I also made my first short films, there are a lot of creative people around, and they work on bigger TV or films, and they get paid fairly well, and so they're able to survive on that. But then making short films as a favor to your friend is like the passion. You help them, you hope that they'll help you, and then you get to tell your story that is separate to the big networks or the big studios, which is very important.
It is very important, Nathalie Boltt, and I truly feel that when you're behind the cameras as a writer, director, or producer, you're giving up, but not giving up on the project, giving up on the 6th last letter of your name to become Nat instead of Nathalie.
Yeah, I think that came about where I was like, Nathalie Boltt sounds very serious, and that's what I put on my my acting and my drama films. But Nat Boltt, that's got that ring, and I was like, that'll be me when I'm doing comedy, so people can go, oh my God, was that crazy film made by Nat Boltt? Rather than going made by Nathalie Boltt. That sounds much too long, and you want it snappy and kind of she cray, she's out of her mind. Yeah, you gotta see it. Yeah, so I'll be Nat Boltt or Nathalie Boltt, but you'll find me.
Absolutely, and there are dozens of little references, and I'm not sure if there are actually real explanation behind it. For instance, when Terry Brenzano, my favorite character, I think, because of his very notable sentences that he wants to cry. For example, when he's arrested, there is a little card with the number 740829. I don't know what is this number referring to. Maybe the last number of your phone number. We don't know.
No, it's not the last number of my phone number. That was Nelson and his wife Vanessa, who are both in the film. Vanessa plays the lead lady when the tough mean girls come in. They actually put that signed together for Terry Bronzano at the end. And I'm sure the number has a meaning, but you, Victor, are the first person to wonder what it is, because you are obviously a stickler for details. I'm very impressed. Nothing gets past you, Victor.
I would love Nathalie Boltt to retrace your journey since the very early days in many regions of the world, because not only you're switching from a big production that I would love to come back later with Riverdale and Attack, which is a smaller one that you made on your own, but also you're moving from countries to others. And there is a very long list that I would let you enumerate.
Well, I won't bore your audience to pieces, but basically, you know, anybody who wants to be a storyteller, whether they're as an actor, as a writer, as a director, you know, we're all kind of it's drilled into us. You need to get to LA, either that or London. But, you know, it's even the UK actors, many of them are drawn to this, like, you know, like moths to the flame. We feel like we need to get to America. And so I was born in Johannesburg, South Africa, very far away from LA. And I was a dancer first, and then I was I became an actor. And I did really well on a show called Isidingo, which stands for The Need. It's was one of the longest running, most successful daily dramas in South Africa. And so I played Joey, the journalist, and I became quite well known there. And so I thought, well, this is my chance. I'm a name. I'm going to have to get to America. And so I got a green card. It took me a long time, but it is possible. Don't give up your dream. And so I went over to America, and there was a strike on. It was a writer's strike. And when the unions strike in America, everything stops. Which is why it's so great, because, you know, it's sort of, you have rights there, and the writers have rights. And so they were like, nothing is going to get made. So there I was in LA going, my dream is not coming true. What do I do now? So my husband who works in visual effects, he was working in Sydney, Australia. And then he was offered a job with Peter Jackson at Weta Digital in Wellington, New Zealand. This was just after Lord of the Rings and King Kong. And so I went, well, I guess that's where we're going, because there's nothing happening in LA. So off we went to Wellington for 3 months. And you know, Victor, what they say about life is that life is what happens when you're making plans. So I thought I'd be there for 3 months and then come back to LA. And we were there for 12 years and had a baby. And still didn't go to LA. So yeah, while I was in New Zealand, I actually, you know, New Zealand is very, very far away, but it's very charming. And I got onto District 9, which became a huge hit. So District 9 was like the breakout hit of 2010, and you know, Oscar nominated, all of that. And I happened to be in the right place when they were making that film, finishing it in Wellington. So I got a break like that. And, you know, as an actor, you're always hoping for the break that will just raise your profile enough to make your life a little easier. So people go, oh yeah, I know her. Yeah, maybe she can play the next role, you know, so you're not always just auditioning and scrabbling around. That's like an Attack, you know, just once I like to get an offer. And, you know, once you start getting recognized, then you do occasionally get offers. Not often, but sometimes. And so after District 9, I did various things in New Zealand, various acting roles, and I also, while I was waiting to get that next break after District 9, I thought, well, how hard can it be to actually make your own film? You know, how hard? Can't be too hard. And like we were talking about at the beginning, it's very, very hard. But I found an incredible story through my friend Claire Burgess, and it's called The Silk. So that became my first short film, and this is a drama. It's on the same website for anybody who wants to watch it, natboltdirector.com. And so I adapted a very famous short story, and it did very, very well. It's not a comedy at all. So this was the serious before the funny. And wow, was it difficult. It was so difficult and so much work to finish a short film. I had so many favors from so many wonderful friends and incredible professionals. And that film went to many festivals. And so I started going, okay, it's hard, but I think I'm going to be a director as well. I'm a writer already. I'm an actor already. I'm now going to be a director. And so then cut to 2016. I'd just done a film with Ethan Hawke called 24 Hours to Live. I flew back to South Africa to do that. And the next thing I knew, we were off to Vancouver because my husband was now working on the Planet of the Apes franchise as a VFX specialist. And I went to Vancouver because I love to travel and realized there's so much being shot here because Vancouver is on the same timeline as LA. And so they now call Vancouver North Hollywood because it's actually way cheaper to shoot in Canada, in Vancouver, than it is in LA. So we have tons and tons of TV series being shot here and some films. So I thought, well, let me audition. And I did 2 auditions. And that second audition was Riverdale. And they called me up and said, you've got the role if you want it. It's for the CW. And I was so clueless because I'd been in New Zealand for so long. I kind of went, what's the CW? And anyway, little did we know that we would shoot the pilot. The pilot got picked up to series, which doesn't always happen. You know, you shoot your first episode, the pilot, and then everybody hopes that you then get a series based on the success of the pilot or the network liking it. And that happened. And then we got another season and then another and another. And now we're shooting the 7th season of Riverdale. And, you know, everybody hopes that they get past their first season or their second season, but it really doesn't happen very often. So for a show like Riverdale with 22 episodes and a season to go for 7 seasons, that's a lot of success and a lot of work for a lot of actors. So it's been an incredibly, a really life-changing experience.
It is a life-changing experience, Nathalie Boltt, and as you like to say, it is about winning, winning, and winning. And you are totally right. When you first arrive in Hollywood, in California, we had an event called the Writers Guild of America Strikes, in which they wouldn't work. And you ask a question, what are you going to do? I have 2 options. Whether become a substitute teacher as recommended in the short film Attack, or maybe go on natbold.com because this is the reference you love to put since the beginning.
But you got it wrong, Victor. natboltdirector.com. Yeah, I mean, that's just as a way to get to know me as a director, because, you know, it's a very separate world. Being in front of the camera as an actor and being behind the camera as a director is very different hats that you have to wear, you know. And I actually, like, as much as I love being a director, I also love, I can't stop being an actor. I have tried, but it didn't work. And so just recently I, we've just finished filming Tiger Mom, where I play a very comedic character, a Russian boot camp trainer, for, children who aren't doing well enough at school. And yeah, that's I've just finished that now, starring Ken Jeong and Michelle Krusiek and Jing Chu Chan, and it's so much fun. It's so much fun doing these things when you get to play as an actor, where you just really need to know your character. And then you jump to the other side of the camera and then you really work hard to create a whole world, and work with your team to see it through from beginning to end. That's tough, but also really fun.
That is very tough and very fun. Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and then I was lucky enough to combine the two worlds when I directed Riverdale. And I directed Riverdale in season 5, and I was acting in that episode. So at one point, I was actually in full dress and wig, jumping in front of and behind the camera, being in the scene and acting, then jumping behind the camera and watching the others in the scene. It was insane. But they let me do it. The showrunner let me do it, Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, which was very cool. And so sometimes those worlds intersect, and then it's hilarious.
Those worlds intersect with many intersections. And what would you say were the biggest lessons after having those cultural diversity, as you mentioned, in Johannesburg, a major city of South Africa, but also New Zealand, Vancouver, and plenty other space that I probably don't know about.
Yeah, I mean, the cultural difference is that, people are people. You'll find friends wherever you go, and then you'll also find people who are incredibly annoying wherever you go, and there are people who will find you incredibly annoying wherever you go. I feel like what I've learned growing up in apartheid South Africa, so I grew up in a very strange time, in a country, at the time, Nelson Mandela was in jail, and the country was ruled by like a white supremacist government. And I was in a school with only white people. And the year that I finished high school, the government changed. And Nelson Mandela came out of prison, and it became a biracial government. And suddenly I realized, and everybody that I'd grown up with realized we had been living in a lie, and we were in one of the most unequal and damaged countries in the world. But then we watched Nelson Mandela work with Archbishop Desmond Tutu to bring in the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, which was a true Truth and Reconciliation Commission where perpetrators and victims could actually meet. Anybody who brought their case to the court could meet, and they could apologize or explain or express their fury and devastation as a means of finding some kind of peace. And it went all around the country, and it was on TV every single day. And all the people who said South Africa was going to erupt in civil war because you could never correct what had been done in South Africa, all of them watched with wide eyes as South Africa did not go into civil war. And so, while South Africa has a lot of problems still, it is at least, I feel, an honest country about what was done and how people hope to go forward. And that's quite a long story, Victor, to just explain that this was my very interesting background where I had to learn to adapt, going, I thought my life was this. It's not this. This was a lie. And this is actually my world now. And what am I going to do to adapt to it? And that really just taught me that of all the things you can be in life that you think will help you succeed, in my opinion, the best thing you can be is adaptable. I actually was listening to an interview on the radio the other day. They were talking to a survivor of the Holocaust, and this person was in one of the camps, and the interviewer was saying, how did you survive? Like, what do you think it was that helped you survive where other people didn't survive? And they said, it was the optimists who suffered the most. They were the ones who said, it'll all be over next week. Don't worry, it'll be fine. And then everything will be fine and go back to normal. And then when next week came, they were devastated. And it was the people who said, let's just see how today goes, And then when next week came and the war didn't end, the adaptable people kind of went, okay, let's see how tomorrow goes. And so that's been, I guess, my philosophy, what's become my philosophy of just, I arrived in LA. It wasn't the picture that I had in my mind. And so that day you kind of go, okay, well, what should I do now? So Yeah, this multicultural experience is more a case of it's life is an adventure. You go, you look, you listen, you try to learn, and then you adapt. And it was different going to New Zealand, which is a very quirky and curious and beautiful country, and then coming to Canada and going to work in America finally, because I have worked in America, and everybody thinks they know American culture from watching movies and TV. It's totally different when you live there. I've lived in Berlin, I've lived in London, I've lived in many English-speaking and German-speaking countries, because I happen to speak German as well. And yeah, people are just people. They can be great, they can be annoying, they can find you annoying, they can find you great. But at the end of the day, if you adapt to what's around you, rather than trying to push your plan through, I guess is what I'm saying. If you adapt to what's around you and you try to be helpful, then you're probably going to have a pretty decent life. That's what I think.
This is very powerful. People are people. And I would include in the Boltt philosophy that you're always taking action within your zone of actions around you. Because you mentioned apartheid, and at that time you contributed to move the things forward by playing in Isidingo indirectly.
Yeah, so Isidingo, this daily drama, was a fascinating program because it dealt with South Africa. It presented a South Africa where black and white were meeting on a different level with a new government, and how people who had been previously completely dominated and suppressed were finding a way to succeed, to be up and coming, to enjoy the same their quality that white people had enjoyed the whole time, to enjoy the same life and I guess luxuries on the one hand, but freedoms on the other. And so this the burgeoning middle class, black middle class that was emerging in South Africa, needed some kind of we all needed something to kind of look at and go, this is how it can be. And, one of the things that was fascinating was this show had the first interracial relationship on camera. It had the first interracial kiss on camera. That kiss stopped traffic. It was actually on the front page of the newspaper, because up until that point, South Africa had never allowed anything like that to be seen. Not in books, not in magazines, newspapers, certainly not on TV. Everything was censored. So if you can think about how weird that was, we lived in this world that was very controlled, and then suddenly the controls were lifted. And so, it was so great to be part of that TV series, not just because the storylines were powerful, but because even as an actor, I had very little experience even acting with other co-stars who weren't white, because that's also the kind of training that I'd had. Everything was so separate, apartheid. And so I managed to make friends for the first time who were not like me. And I found it so much more interesting. And on the other hand, you also feel terrible guilt because you're part of the suppressor, the race of the oppressor. And so, you also learn to live with those deep, dark thoughts and feelings of going, I'm part of the problem, not me personally maybe, but I enjoyed all the privileges of being a white person, and I was brought up by people who 100% knew what was going on and didn't educate me as a child as to what was really happening in South Africa and how badly people were suffering. And because I'm a sensitive person, and most comedians are very sensitive, I felt a lot of shame and guilt, and it had a lot to do with me also leaving South Africa, going, I don't know that I should be here. I should I should probably find somewhere where I don't feel like I've done so much damage as a human. I don't know that I feel like that now, but it took many years of me working to try and correct the imbalance to get me where I am now, where I believe that, with my profile on Riverdale, the least I can do is use it as a showcase to let people who have suffered under regimes of some kind, whether it's sort of undemocratic democracies or the damage of the Catholic Church or the damage of the residential schools in Canada, for instance, to at least use my platform to speak so that they have more eyes and ears on the truth or on their experience of life. So yeah, like when people meet me and there's always still a part of me that goes like, I'm South African and they're going to think I'm a racist. But at the same time, I believe that as you get to know me in this interview and other people get to know me, that they will hopefully see, okay, this person comes from a place of a big heart. And even though she will never understand what it's like to be oppressed, like I have, perhaps she can be an ally, or the ally idea becomes a bit of a cliche. So perhaps I can just see her as a human who has good intentions and at least is open to learning and to expressing that she knows that she doesn't know much. Like when Black Lives Matter really came to the forefront during COVID, one of the big discussions was around, do not pretend as a white person that you know what is going on, or that you know how Black people feel in America or in the world. But you can at least say, I know what I don't know. And I'd like to say that. I know what I don't know. It's a lot that I don't know. Yeah. But I'm working on making it less every day.
This is very inspiring, Nathalie Boltt. And on a more positive side, would you say that sentence, I must go to Hollywood with an exclamation point, could be replaced with, I must go to the Kempton Park University?
Kempton Park University? I don't think that's the university you mean. Do you mean in South Africa? Rhodes University?
I mean the university that has attended one of your most iconic character named Sarah Livingstone. She is a sociologist from that school.
Victor, you did research that I did not do. Right, Kempton Park University. That is hilarious, because that must come up on screen when Sarah Livingston speaks, and Kempton Park University does not exist, but Kempton Park is it's like an in-joke in South Africa. It's quite rough. So I guess that says something about Sarah Livingston being a bit of a badass, and I'll take that compliment.
You will take that compliment, Nathalie Boltt. And that's right. It was actually one of the very few information we had from her at the very beginning, with a little banner and that name of school. And you're starting with those few sentences. We didn't have a plan. There was a million of them. So what was a temporary holding zone soon became fence, became militarized.
My favorite lines. Yeah, my favorite lines.
And before we knew it, it was a slum.
Yep. You got it. All of those. I've said those words over and over. Yeah, District 9 was so fantastic. I had just had a baby and I hadn't slept for weeks. And I got a call from my agent saying, hey, do you want to be in a film? It's about aliens addicted to cat food. It's a bit of a sci-fi horror. And I went, oh, the one time I get an offer, I didn't have to audition for it. The one time I get an offer, it sounds like B-grade nonsense. And I said, no, I don't want to do this. I'm tired. I've just had a baby. I just want to sleep. I wanted to get an offer for like, I don't know, Schindler's List or something. And not aliens addicted to cat food. And then they called a few times and said, please, it won't take long. Please just be in this film. And so I went, oh, okay. And so off I went. And it's quite funny because when you see me in District 9, you can actually see that I haven't slept in weeks. I mean, I look wrecked. And I've also got a very interesting, strange haircut. I don't know what had happened with that decision, but I kind of have got this like, whoa, what's happening? Look about me. And who would have known that actually then became one of my biggest successes in terms of my acting career. That's life.
Teachers and scientists are oftenly working a lot overnight, so they are tired. So you were not tired yourself. You were entering the character.
Correct, yes. I've been spending a lot of time in the lab. Thank you, Victor.
And Nathalie Boltt, you just mentioned those two words, or those one words, which is nonsense, because that was your first impression of that project. That's why I believe that Attack could be the sequel of District 9.
Wow. Okay, that's the biggest compliment I've ever heard, I've ever received, but I will take it. Yes, it's kind of wild enough to be District 10, isn't it? Like, or just everything goes crazy in my film. I must speak to Neil Blomkamp about that and just say, don't worry, Neil, even though all your fans want the sequel to District 9, I've made it. It's okay.
On one hand, Nathalie Boltt, there is this scientist who is trying to save the world and make good things around her. And on the other side, there is a character named Penelope Blossom, who is in a less positive environment. Can you tell us a little bit more about your special character and especially that final season, because Riverdale is coming to an end?
Yeah. So, I mean, Penelope Blossom, she's crazy. I mean, she's about as crazy as a bag of squirrels. And when we started off in season 1, it was very much about the Blossoms, and Penelope was like this really dark, cruel mother who clearly had some issues. And then as Riverdale progressed, I would suggest to the showrunner, so if she's lost everything and she doesn't have actually any qualifications, what would she do? And then I don't know if you remember, but season 2, she was the madam at a bordello. She ran the Maple Club. And so that was hilarious. I loved that season. She's just like this angry, very strict dominatrix type lady. And I had, that's when the amazing outfits started. One of my favorite things about Riverdale is Penelope gets to wear the most fantastic clothes. And behave very badly. And then, from there we went into season 3, and I think it was always clear that Penelope had this fury and danger to her where she really could be capable of anything. So the way season 3 ended, I guess, was not a surprise. It was just quite cleverly planned as to how we'd show that Penelope was behind everything. But yeah, and then from there, I think, this constant relationship with the daughter, Penelope and Cheryl being, Penelope being so cruel, always so cruel to her child, needed to be kind of put to bed, put to rest. Because we explained, and I think it's very important that we explained that Penelope had been mistreated by the Catholic Church, which I really understand because, there's a lot of that in my family. There's so much here in Canada. Around the world, the Catholic Church has really damaged a lot of people with their sort of guilt and shame and, terrible convents that are cruel to children and much worse than that even. So we explained at least why my character is such a villain, so evil, so bitter, so nasty, so cruel to her daughter. And then, season 6, last season, Penelope just popped up once or twice, kind of in a dream fugue state. And this was, fantastic episodes, but we kind of sent her away. We sent her away to the Himalayas to think about what she'd done. And that was it for Penelope for season 6. So now season 7, the final season, I would love to tell you what's coming, but of course I don't know. And that's not even one of those, I kind of know, but I can't tell you. Like, I really don't know, because this show is so big and so extreme, right? It's so insane that our showrunner, Roberto, has to come up with a way to tie all of these threads that he's, all of these mad storylines that have been woven through the series. They all have to come together at the end of the season. We have a huge cast. You've already spoken to some of our cast, like Kira, etc. I'm sure you'll speak to more. But yeah, we have what happens to Betty and Archie, Veronica, Jughead, Cheryl, Kevin, all of our favorite characters, and there are way more than those. And I think Penelope, I'll tell you what I can say is what I'd like to see. I would like to see Penelope's sexuality explained, because Penelope has been written as so homophobic. And if you've been paying attention, and I know you have, Victor, because nothing gets past you, it's sort of become clear that Penelope is actually gay herself, and that she has been punished throughout her life for having feelings for the same sex. And so I would like to see what happens with that. And maybe there'll be some kind of resolution with Penelope and Cheryl, where finally there is a little bit of love, like genuine love, genuine gentleness between the two of them, that can leave people feeling relieved and satisfied.
The audience will be relieved and satisfied. And you mentioned some of them between the lines. But what were your most memorable memories during those soon-to-be 7 seasons? It's a lot of years.
I have many memories. I think my favorite one was directing Riverdale, honestly. It was called Dance of Death, episode 517. And I had so much fun because I got to direct my fellow actors, and they were very generous and kind. I had one particular day with Mark Consuelos and Camila Mendez, where it's the dance of death between her and her dad. And we just had the whole day to just do these really, really emotional scenes around what it feels like for a daughter to not be good enough because her father wanted a son. That's a big topic. And I know for both Camilla and for, so many young women who experience that, whose father is disappointed because they weren't a boy, that is a very big topic. And so I had a great time just working with them, and there were a lot of tears and a lot of emotion, but a lot of genuine feeling. I loved that day. And then I also loved the day where we blew up the mine. So I got to do like a dust bomb, where Archie's inside the mine with Kevin, etc. And then there's an earthquake because Hiram has set a bomb and the whole thing blows. Boosh, and we had this fantastic shot where all the dust just explodes out of the front of the mine. And, we basically, like, it exploded and all this dust came towards the camera. And then I went, and it's a cut. And everyone went, it was just like, that was one of those, like, if me 20 years ago had known that I would be doing that, I would have been like, yeah, high five, man. Dreams do come true. It was worth all the crazy and all the places you've lived and all the stuff that you've had to do to get to this point where I could blow up a mine shaft. So that was definitely a high point for me. I'd say that. I'd say the laughs that we had behind the scenes. I would say working with Luke Perry, was wonderful. He was always great and we had a good time. So I have, bittersweet memories of Luke and like, you miss people like that. And the social stuff, the rest of the cast when we were having a great time in seasons 1 and 2 and beyond. Yeah.
In conclusion, Nathalie Boltt, I hope maybe to see a pink cardigan in that final season, maybe worn by yourself or maybe by one of the other characters. I am looking forward. Thank you very much, Nathalie Boltt.
Thank you so much for the interview, Victor. And if I end up wearing a pink cardigan on Riverdale, if I go like this, it's for you. It means, hey, Victor. Cool. Thank you so much for this interview.